I'm delighted to say Rupert Bell, TalkRadio's royal correspondent, rejoins us to talk about the coronation. I have to tell you, so obviously we've talked about this a bit this morning, and there are some very, very funny stories. Like, so for example, in Madame Tussauds, I don't know if you're aware of this, that Harry's been moved. Harry's been moved, and they've left Meghan where she was.
well, she's been left where she is, back in Montecito. So Madame Tussauds are just reading the room, unlike Harry and Meghan at times.
Well, Harry's been moved to be with the royal family. He's had a dust down, apparently.
But will he only
new clothes?
Will he only be there for 4 hours?
Some people would like to see the Meghan effigy move to the Blackpool Madame Tussauds or melted down.
Is that your
No, I'm
view?
saying some people.
Some people. Yeah. Also, there's lots of other lovely stories about, and obviously we'll talk in a minute about what is actually going to happen in the service itself, and indeed the whole procession and everything. But I was really struck by this about the chairs that are going to be used. So we've got the chairs of estate, which will be used. You've got the coronation chair, or St Edward's chair. Then you've got the King's throne chair. This was used by his grandfather, King George VI, in 1937. But when you then look at everything else, these date back centuries.
Well, the throne is 1300.
Yeah.
Then they're bringing down the stone of Scone to go underneath it, because that went
back to Scotland, didn't it?
In 1997, it went back to Scotland, but now it's being brought back and then will be placed under the throne. And then there's three. He changes seats a lot.
Yeah.
At various stages, but he said he didn't want new chairs there. He's using the ones from 1937. So there's one heck of a storage area somewhere for all this stuff. And then there are other chairs being made for the service, but then subsequently they will then be sold off for charity.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. So my understanding is that the chairs of estate will be used for the majority of the 2-hour service. This includes the moment of the Queen's crowning. Now, the coronation chair, this is St Edward's chair, will be used for the King's anointing, and the throne chairs will be used for the moment of enthronement. And the King's throne chair, although originally was used for King George VI, he's had it reupholstered.
Well, yes, because obviously it
Make do amend.
Well, it might have got a bit of moth damage or something. You know, it might be not as worn and not that it's been sat on a lot. Presumably, it's only been sat on by only in special occasions, and we've only had 2 coronations.
And the workmen. When they moved it.
Well, and so it might just needed a little bit of TLC. That's presumably what's happened. But actually, it's quite interesting looking at all the craftspeople that have actually sort of had to get the opportunity to use their skills, and that's one of the things the King is passionate about, is old skills and old craftspeople, what they're doing. And we've seen him when he did the repair shop programme, those kind of things.
Yes, I'd forgotten about that.
So that actually shows that it's something that he's passionate about, in ensuring that the old-time skills still have a relevance, and presumably the coronation is an example of people with old skills being able to use their work to good effect.
I think it's brilliant. Right, let's talk about the actual day itself. Amazingly, obviously it's taking place at Westminster Abbey. He will be the 40th reigning monarch crowned there since 1066. I'm just loving that history.
Well, I mean, this is the point of the monarchy, isn't it? It's the institution, not the individual. Yeah. And I think that has to be remembered. You can have an opinion about Charles, and look, we were just talking before we came on air about the documentary and how his views of environmental issues he's been talking about it since 1970, when it was very unfashionable, and there was a clip of him saying some pretty...
It was in black and white, wasn't it? That's how old it was.
And it was pretty punchy things he was saying, and he also... So he's a controversial character, but I think the thing is he is king of a modern era, in a sense, reflecting what people are thinking, and that's what the institution is about. And if you think we had a hiatus from 1648 to 1660, which actually, if you look about it from 1066 to 2023, is about the halfway time where we got a bit hacked off with the royal... Well, in terms of King Charles, it was head off. But even though we had a hiatus, that didn't last long. And then it came back, and of course it's an imperfect system at times in many people's eyes, but it is the institution we have, and it's the institution. There's just an individual who is a part-time resident in that, and he's got to make sure that he's fitting for his
you're
role.
a custodian, aren't you?
Well, and he sees that. And again, that documentary was very important about he wants to leave it, and you got a sense from that documentary last night how important he sees it to leave it for William.
Excuse me. So let's talk about what happens. So I've found out now that actually this all kicks off at 6 o'clock. So public access will be allowed from 6 o'clock. So you can then get to the Mall and Whitehall. Now, I didn't know this. It's first come, first served when you go there. And there are screening sites in Hyde Park, Green Park and St James's Park once they're full. There are stands for invited guests, including armed force veterans, NHS and social care staff. They're outside Buckingham Palace. 200 members of the armed forces from the Sovereign's escort of the Household Cavalry will be taking part in the procession, and another 1,000 service personnel that you were talking about lining the route. Now, we think, I'm guessing, how long does it take to get from Buckingham Palace to Westminster Abbey?
Well, probably about I think they'll leave about 10 o'clock. By the whole
I wrote 10:15, but I was just guessing.
Well,
Depends on the traffic.
Well, someone will know exactly to the second.
They will.
When they will be coming out. So the idea is for him to get to Westminster Abbey for 11 o'clock.
Exactly. Yeah. And he will be, or he and the Queen will be in the Diamond Jubilee State coach.
Yes, and this platinum, what happened it was made in Australia.
Yes.
I didn't know they had a hotbed of coach makers in Australia, but it was a gift from Australia. It's an upgrade. It's got heating and air conditioning in it.
And suspension.
Yep.
Yeah.
Whereas the one that they come out in, the Gold State coach, has, well, but the Queen just didn't like it at all.
The suspension was terrible. She said she wanted to vomit.
Aren't they straps on that one?
Yes, but I think there's been some TLC to make it a little bit more comfortable for the Queen, King and Queen. But that is, it's a fabulous. I stood quite close to it at the last year's Platinum Jubilee celebrations. They had a hologram in it.
Yes, of course. Because she wasn't there, was she?
And it came past. But it is the most fabulous, spectacular looking thing. Even though the people sitting inside it, it's probably going, I wish we need to get, but it can only go at 4 miles an hour. I did a taxi route round it, and I'll tell you what, the traffic, while I was doing this with Sarah Hewson, we were doing some filming of the route, the London traffic, that state coach still goes quicker.
So much more we could talk about. I'm running out of time, but a kick-off 11 o'clock, that's what we now know. And also so much history in this, and I've been reading up about this because obviously I'm doing the show on Saturday, and I've been reading about all the sovereign's orb and the sceptre with orb and the sceptre with dove and everything. So I'm very excited about the whole thing, and it will be fascinating to see.
I think it will be a big show. It's a once-in-a-lifetime show. Now, people may not see the relevance of it, but I think it's what we do in this country, and we
do it well.
And we need to celebrate it.
We do, Rupert. Thank you very much indeed to you, Rupert. Thank you also, Julie, and for keeping me company this morning. It's been an absolute pleasure with your deep chuckle. Thank you very much indeed.